Hey guys, Brendan with Quackpack here. This week we're talking about the M1 Garand. This gun was an absolute game changer for World War II and kind of a little bit of an interesting history that we're going to get into today. So let's get into it.
Introducing the latest sensation from Genesee, Black Cherry Vanilla Keller Beer. Crafted with the finest ingredients and hints of black cherry and vanilla for a refreshing twist. Taste the flavor of that in-between summer and fall season in every sip. Our harmonious blend of smooth vanilla and vibrant black cherry perfectly balanced in every sip. Genesee Black Cherry Vanilla Keller Beer, where every sip is a celebration. Discover the flavor, available until October of this year.
All right, so the M1 Garand, like the name suggests, was developed by a man called John Garand. He was a Canadian engineer, and he worked at the Springfield Armory in Massachusetts. He started working on this gun in the 1920s, and then when this gun was adopted by the U.S. military, it was 1936. It took a significant time to develop this firearm. This did end up, taking over for that Springfield 1903 for a variety of reasons that we're going to talk about today. So, unlike bolt-action rifles of that time, World War I, World War II, the M1 was semi-automatic. Big benefit of that, obviously, you can shoot faster, and the faster you shoot, the more dangerous you are. You could put more rounds downrange at a quicker time. Another thing about it is this would hold 8 rounds in a clip. You've almost doubled the carrying capacity of this gun as opposed to, say, the predecessor, the 1903, with a 5-round clip. Well, it was actually a 5-round magazine in that gun. This one did utilize clips. So it shot just like the 1903. It shot a 30 caliber, 30-06, which was a pretty big cartridge. Since then, the U.S. has gone to smaller cartridges, and we're actually starting to scale up again in the military that they're going to bigger rounds, away from that 223, 5.56 round, and they're getting bigger, 308 and all that stuff. So 7 millimeters making a big comeback. Pretty heavy round, pretty fast round, significant stopping power that the 30-06 would be good for. So they made over 6 million of these. It saw extensive action during World War II, the Korean War, into Vietnam. They liked this gun, soldiers did, because it was an accurate gun, it was reliable. General Patton actually called this gun the greatest battle implement ever devised. So if that speaks to its character, maybe. So it had an internal clip system, right? So you'd feed your clip in here, and we'll talk about that. Took these en-bloc clips. So you'd fill this up with 8 rounds, and you could put that in there. So I'll show you in a minute there. But that internal clip system, it would feature, once that last round was expended, it would feature that kind of characteristic ping noise of that M1 Garand as it would throw out that en-bloc clip, letting you know that the gun was empty. It would have last round holdback as well, so when you're empty on your chamber, your bolt will stay locked. Benefit for that is you know that you're empty, and you don't have to cycle the action to load, so you're actually saving time there. It would have an adjustable front sight up here, okay? And it would have an adjustable rear sight. So this sight you could adjust for windage and for elevation. So this would be your windage adjustment, and it would turn your sight left to right. And this would be your elevation sight, and it brings that sight up and down. So this is a gas blowback rifle. So this would be your safety. I'll show you here, right here. This is in safe. That's in your fire position. So again, safe, fire. They did have a variation of this trigger guard that was bigger, and that was made for wintertime combat, where obviously you'd have bigger, thicker gloves on. So you need to have a thicker trigger guard to be able to get your finger in there to operate this safety. So this would be kind of a little counterintuitive for today. You would have to operate this with your finger inside the trigger guard, which today kind of goes against normal safety protocols. But to take this apart, it's actually pretty easy. So to take this gun apart, you'd pull back on this trigger guard, right? You got to pull it back, and then it would lift up. That would bring out that whole trigger control group right there. Okay, and then from there, you have your stock, and there's your fore end. So to take this gun apart is actually pretty simple. So as you can kind of see, this is your gas tube on the bottom. As you shot your gun, The gas would be expended down through here and pushed back, and it would push back on this operating rod, right? And that's what would bring it all the way back. So it did use the gas of every round to cycle that gun. That's how that worked. To put it back together, you gotta put this little guy on that rod, and then you can push it up and then down. Put your trigger back in, and you just clamp it back in. It's a relatively simple design. You would have a little door back here, and that would hold your cleaning tools for this gun. We'll go a little bit into loading this real quick. So I do have some live rounds. I don't have 8 dummy rounds, so I'm gonna load my real rounds on the bottom, and then what's actually gonna be in the gun, in the chamber, is gonna be dummy rounds. So to load your en-bloc clip, you take your clip, and you just kind of put the first couple rounds in, and they'll naturally kind of want to filter themselves in like an alternating stack, right? To where then you'll have those 4. There we go. If one pops out, it's all right. Okay, so I've got those 4 in there, and then you just kind of work them in one at a time, and then this last one you can push in just like a normal magazine at this point, right? You can go in straight from the top and just push it down, and that will end up locking in. So to load this into your rifle, you're gonna lock to the rear with your bolt to the rear. All right, you'll take your clip and you'll place it in there like so. From there, you're gonna push straight down with your thumb. The operating manual says when you do it to keep your heel of your palm against that charging handle, and that will help stop what's called grand thumb from your bolt riding forward, sticking your thumb in there. Pretty painful thing to happen. What I've noticed personally is when you push it in, as long as you hold your thumb in there and keep downward pressure, your bolt's not gonna move. So push it in, get it in, then you can pull it out. So I'm gonna stand up just to do this, just to give myself a little bit better leverage. And it's gonna make me look like a liar. Watch it just lock on my hand. So you're gonna push your bolt all the way down. You can see that bolt starting to go, right? That bolt does wanna go, but it's not gonna move as long as my thumb's in there. So again, I remove my thumb and we're hot, okay? So a lot of people think now to empty this gun, you'd have to, pull this back 8 times and expel every round. You don't. This gun features this little guy right here. Okay? So when you pull back, when you push that button, it will bring that clip out. So now I've got my clip out. I've got an empty gun. So if you need to unload this for any reason, right, pull that back. And again, you can do it by holding it back with your hand, and you can press that button. So a little bit awkward to do trying to show you to the camera. I apologize. I misspoke in my last video with that 1903. I said that this was the original bayonet issued with this. This is incorrect. This is an M1 bayonet. This was 1930s, 1940s. What I meant to say was this is the original bayonet that came with that gun. So whatever collector had that, had this bayonet with it and that sling. But not necessarily the original ones issued with that. So I did misspeak there, so that's my fault. The M1 bayonet was a 10-inch blade. This was the second iteration of bayonet that they used. We talked about this in the 1903. Again, 10-inch blade, okay, and it would clip in the front there. Again, your bayonets should not be that sharp. The first iteration of bayonet that also would be on the 1903, so your 1903 could have this bayonet on it, would be the M1905 bayonet. And this is a 16-inch blade, okay? Somebody did sharpen this, so this one is definitely not like the original. This one was made in 1913. So this was designed for the 1903, but it was adopted to the M1 Garand and remained in service throughout World War I and World War II. The benefits, obviously, of the 10-inch versus the 16-inch You know, lighter, smaller, more maneuverable. This Heck and Chonker, obviously, you get a little bit more reach. And we'll kind of talk a little bit about bayonets. Probably in another video, we'll do just a bayonet video. 1905 M1 bayonet. The next one that came out was the M4 bayonet, which is pretty modern as far as bayonets go. The way they designed initially bayonets to be used, not necessarily like a normal knife, you know, where you'd have that sewing machine or overhand grip. They were kind of made to be gripped back on the pommel with your thumbs like this, just so that cross guard could do a little bit of protective work for your hands. So just a little side note. Anyway, so this is the M1 Garand, just a sweet piece of history. John Garand, guy was a genius, created a lot of guns. You know, the ingenuity and his legacy lives on today. All video games, you know, a lot of World War II movies, they're pretty quick to show these off. And it is a great gun. So anyway, thanks for listening. Appreciate you guys stopping by today, and have a good one. We'll see you in the next one.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching today's video. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to click that little bell to get notified whenever we post a video.